You are breathing in toxins every minute. From the moment you were in your mother's womb to every breath and every move you make every day. Toxins keep building up silently until your organs fail. And when you finally feel it, it's often a lifetime of toxins erupting all at once.
What if I told you that right now, as you're listening, you're constantly inhaling invisible threats, and that this whole process actually began even before you were born? Today, on the Deep Dive, we're plunging into, well, the ubiquitous threat of air toxins. They're like this unseen adversary in our everyday lives. Our Deep Dive is based on two pretty compelling sources. The ubiquitous threat of air toxins, another one, you are breathing toxins every minute. And that second one, it provides insights published very recently, actually, July 26, 2025, straight out of Taipei. So our mission today is really to unpack these sources. We want to uncover the surprising truth about where these toxins come from, how they violently infiltrate our bodies, and crucially, what the authors of these texts propose as a, well, pretty radical approach to this whole pervasive problem. Okay, let's unpack this.
Right. So at the heart of our discussion today are these air toxins. They're pervasive elements really stemming from both indoor and outdoor sources, and often they're working together. As these sources show us, their presence is, well, it's truly everywhere. It's a constant in our environment.
And when we talk about where these things actually come from, what really jumped out at me from these sources is how they kind of challenge our basic assumptions about safety. You might think your home is your safe haven, right? But the research suggests it's actually one of the most significant places for toxin exposure. What, for you, was maybe the most startling revelation about where these toxins are lurking, inside our own living spaces?
Well, yeah, the sheer variety of indoor culprits is quite eye-opening. We're talking about everything from the moment you even step into your car. You're immediately exposed to TVOCs, that's volatile organic compounds, and tiny plastic microparticles released from the upholstery, the plastics. Then, simply cooking a meal in your kitchen generates fumes. That's another source. And even things that seem totally innocuous, like shedding human skin fragments or pet hair, they contribute to the biological fragments just floating around us.
Huh. So it's not just the obvious pollutants we might think of.
Exactly. Not at all. Even your indoor decor materials can be silently releasing toxins, things like formaldehyde, benzene, ammonia. And think about your daily routine. All those artificial fragrances and toxic molecules from personal care products, perfumes, cosmetics, shampoo, body wash, and of course household cleaning agents, they're constantly putting things into the air. What's truly insidious here, as the sources point out, is that these aren't like immediate poisons. You don't suddenly keel over. Instead, they're these silent daily deposits that subtly push your body towards a critical toxin saturation point. It's like a tipping point you won't even feel coming.
Wow. It really makes you rethink that whole idea of clean living, doesn't it? It's like your safe haven is actually this subtle battleground. Oh, okay, and if you thought stepping outside was the solution, well, think again. These sources make it really clear that outdoor sources are just as relentless. So what are some of the key outdoor players we need to be aware of, according to the research?
Well, the familiar suspects are definitely there. You've got vehicle emissions, of course. Motorcycles, cars, diesel vehicles, even airplanes. Plus things like brake dust and, again, more plastic microparticles. But it goes deeper than that. The urban environment itself is a huge contributor. It generates particulate matter, and we're talking about PM 2.5, PM 0.1, and particles even smaller than that. To give you a sense of scale, PM 2.5 are particles so tiny you'd need an electron microscope to see them, maybe 30 times smaller than the width of a human hair. And PM 0.1, they're about 25 times smaller than even PM 2.5, incredibly small. Along with these, you have heavy metal particles generated from city construction sites, cement production, even just road abrasion.
So unbelievably tiny then.
Precisely. Then there are industrial emissions, things like factory burning, incinerator particles, acidic mist, and these submicron aerosols carried in the air. And here's a truly unsettling detail from the sources. Even seemingly natural settings can be deceptive. Agricultural runoff and spray, pesticide particles can attach themselves to plant pollen. So yeah, you smell the fragrance of flowers, but the source says you might also be inhaling insecticide. And of course, natural events like wildfire smoke, dust storms, they release extremely small nanoparticles, those PM 0.1 and smaller ones. And the danger there is they can penetrate the lung alveoli, those tiny air sacs in your lungs, get into the bloodstream, and ultimately reach the brain and even the cell nucleus, potentially altering cell destiny.
Right. And what's fascinating, or maybe terrifying, is that the sources point out simply opening a window means these outdoor toxins just ceaselessly drift into your home. This isn't an occasional intrusion. It's presented as a constant 24-hour toxin infiltration battle. It really blurs the line between indoor and outdoor exposure.
Exactly. It's a constant exchange.
And this next insight from the sources is particularly striking. I mean, really striking, because they indicate this exposure starts much, much earlier than you might imagine. In fact, the astonishing claim is that toxin absorption begins before birth. While fetus is still in the mother's womb. Can you walk us through how that even happens, according to them?
Yeah, it's quite profound the way they describe it. We learn that these ultrafine particles, specifically the PM0.11s and aerosols, possess this extreme permeability. This means they can apparently easily pass through the mother's respiratory tract, cross the blood barrier, penetrate the placenta, and directly reach the fetal bloodstream. The sources paint a pretty stark picture here. They say, quote, when the mother breathes, the fetus also inhales the toxic mist. When the mother eats a mouthful of food with pesticide residues, chemical substances are simultaneously transmitted to the next generation's organs. It's framed as truly a lifelong, or maybe even pre-lifelong, infiltration.
That's genuinely unsettling to consider.
Wow. So, okay, if this starts before we're even born, how does it continue throughout our lives? Do the sources give us a sense of how pervasive this really is, like minute by minute?
They absolutely do. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the research asserts that after birth, literally every minute of life involves the inescapable absorption of toxins detrimental to the body. It's not presented as something you can simply avoid. And they provide specific, very relatable examples to illustrate this constant, unavoidable exposure across all sorts of daily activities. Like when you're driving a car. The vehicle interior VOCs are slowly permeating your lung alveoli. If you're taking an airplane, they say thousands of aerosols are absorbed by your circulatory system. Even something like surfing in the ocean, suspended metal microparticles apparently adhere to your skin. Hiking in the mountains, every deep breath, according to them, inhales plasticizers into your blood. And if you're doing strenuous exercise, basketball, soccer, aerobics, your increased lung activity just leads to even greater toxin absorption, even just studying at a desk. Formaldehyde from decor materials continuously enters your nasal cavity. And even when you're asleep, invisible TVOCs in the room constantly permeate your body. It's presented as a completely nonstop process.
And these ultrafine toxins, they don't just float around harmlessly. The sources use this phrase, they drill into the deepest corners of your body. They attach to your skin, penetrate blood vessels through pores, they mix with bodily fluids and get distributed throughout your entire system via circulation. They can even cross the blood-brain barrier, which is supposed to protect your brain, and enter deep brain regions. And from there, they become locked into your liver, kidneys, bone marrow, nerve endings, and can become deeply embedded in fat cells, forming what the sources call an unmetabolizable toxin warehouse.
Exactly. And the truly chilling part, as highlighted repeatedly in the sources, is the critical absence of sensation.
Yeah.
You never feel their presence. Why? Because as they explain it, the nervous system is really only designed to react to severe pain or strong odors. It simply cannot detect this kind of chronic, decades-long chemical erosion.
So the dire consequence, then, is that your body is silently conquered. That's the picture they paint. Until organs just begin to collapse. From the fetal period onward, toxins set up camp in the corners of your blood, nerves, and cells. A lifetime of breathing, a lifetime of just going about your daily routine become acts of silent poisoning, according to this view. They won't warn you, won't cause you pain, until one day some malfunctions and organ breaks down first, and then one after another they fail. The body can no longer sustain life, and a lifetime ends. That's the endpoint described.
It's a very grim outlook presented in the material.
It really is. So what does this all mean for us? I mean, what, if anything, can actually be done about this pervasive silent poisoning? The sources have a very strong, almost absolute stance when it comes to common notions of detox. They really dismiss them quite forcefully.
Indeed, they are quite blunt about it. Market concepts of detoxification are described in the text as, quote, the deadliest myths. They are very clear. You cannot use sweat to expel benzene. You cannot use urine to expel plasticizers from the brain. And you cannot, quote, cleanse your liver with health supplements. The blunt conclusion drawn from these sources is stark. Once toxins are embedded, they can no longer be removed, period.
That's a remarkably strong and, absolute stance. Do the sources elaborate much on why they dismiss these methods so unequivocally? Like, what's the scientific backing they present for that blunt conclusion that once toxins are embedded, they just can't be removed?
They really focus on the fundamental mechanisms of how these ultrafine toxins integrate into the body. because they permeate at such a microscopic level, literally crossing barriers like the blood-brain barrier and getting locked into cells, into organs. They're not just sitting on the surface waiting to be flushed out, according to this perspective. The sources highlight that the body's natural detoxification pathways, while effective for certain substances, are simply not equipped to handle the sustained, deep infiltration of these specific microscopic particles. So given this stark reality they present, the sources offer only one proposed solution: aggressively blocking toxin entry in the first place.
Right. So if detox isn't the answer, according to them, what is the path forward? The sources pivot dramatically here, arguing the only viable strategy is to block toxins from entering our bodies. Full stop. And they have some pretty strong criticisms for our current approaches to air purification too, don't they? Specifically HEPA filters.
They certainly do. Yeah, they heavily critique traditional HEPA filters, especially when it comes to the most dangerous, smallest nanoparticles, those PM0.1 and even smaller. Their analysis suggests that standard HEPA filters are really only effective for particles 0.3 micrometers and larger, which means, according to them, virtually all PM0.1 and smaller deadly nanoparticles can just penetrate right through. Furthermore, they point out that the airflow through many traditional HEPA filters is often too fast. It doesn't allow sufficient contact time for adsorption. They also claim that the electrostatic charges on these filters can fail within weeks, leading to a rapid decay in their effectiveness.
And a key problem, according to these sources, is the lack of something they call a maze structure. What exactly is that, and why do they say it's so crucial?
Well, this maze structure concept is key in their argument because it allows filters to use more advanced principles. Things like inertial impaction, where tiny particles literally crash into the filter material as the air is forced to weave through an intricate path. And also electrostatic adsorption, where particles are drawn in like tiny magnets to charged surfaces within the maze. Without this complex, winding pathway, traditional filters, they argue, simply can't effectively capture these incredibly small, elusive particles. This is why, according to our sources, only solutions like the specific one they mentioned, the Life Module 2026 with its patented maze structure, only that has the ability to, quote, intercept the finest, most toxic group of killers. They also refer to this technology as the air-6-free maze purification system.
Okay, so this isn't just about swapping out a filter, but implementing a whole system.
Precisely. Yeah, it's a systemic approach. The complementary strategies advocated for by the sources include creating fully sealed spaces and implementing directional airflow to establish what they call a positive pressure clean zone. They actually describe this as creating a small paradise on Earth. And this, it really raises an important question, doesn't it, about a fundamental shift in how we approach health. The source frames this particular solution not as some kind of luxury, but as, quote, the only engineering solution that allows you to control your destiny against these toxins. It's presented as a complete reevaluation of how we need to protect our internal environment from the external one.
Right. So to kind of summarize the core message of this deep dive, based on these texts, from before birth, we're continuously, silently accumulating toxins. That's the first major point. Second, they deeply penetrate our bodies, getting locked in. And third, the sources make this really radical assertion that traditional detox is essentially a myth, leaving only prevention blocking entry as a viable path. The chilling premise, as stated so directly in the sources, is you are breathing toxins every minute, yet you never feel it.
Yeah, that's the crux of it. And for you, the listener, to consider, the sources offer this provocative, even stark final thought. They state, when you finally feel something is wrong, it is often a lifetime of accumulated toxins erupting all at once. At that point, they continue, hospitals become concentration camps for these toxin saturation point outbreaks, and your body has no chance of recovery. It's a chilling analogy, to say the least. They go on to state that changes in the air represent a turning point for destiny. This generation, it argues flatly, may not have the opportunity to live as long or stay healthy for as long as previous ones.
Wow, heavy stuff. Yet the sources don't end entirely on that note. They culminate with this truly bold, almost fantastical vision for the future, leaving us with this thought-provoking, unforgettable image. Only the new human evolution generation, the source claims, can live like immortals happily for 300, 500 years. This, they state, is the future that the world dares not imagine and the truth it dares not face. And it ends by suggesting that with technologies like the air-6-free maze purification machine, this destiny is actually being rewritten right now, transforming living spaces into a, quote, dust-free, germ-free, toxin-free, smoke-free, odor-free, heavy metal-free, small paradise on Earth. Quite the vision.